It is time to dig deep with Stacy and Stacy, a podcast for anyone hungry for God and willing to tackle today's relevant issues with authentic conversations inspired by Holy Scripture, prayer, and devotion to the sacraments. Hosted by two Texas gals who went to the same country Baptist church as little girls, had crazy lives, and found each other again decades later as Catholic convert wives and moms. Get ready, y'all. They're fixing to get real.
I'm Stacy Farquharson.
And I'm Stacy Trasancos. We want to do this podcast to be an encouragement. We simply want to be an encouragement. Stacy and I want to talk about things that no one else wants to discuss, things we run from, the fears we have about our families, our children, the headlines in the news, and even the fears we have or confusions we have about everything going on in the Catholic Church today. From experience, Stacy and Stacy, we know what it feels like to be the lone warrior on the battlefield.
Yes, it's scary and depressing. And, sometimes we just need someone to lock arms with us and let us know that we're not alone and that you're not the only one dealing with these issues.
Exactly.
We hide our weaknesses from each other. We hide our weaknesses because we don't want to be judged, and we hide our fears from each other because we don't want to appear weak.
Yeah, and that's what Stacy and I are doing in the Stacy and Stacy podcast. It's so neat that we have first names that we both spell alike, which is a pretty rare spelling for Stacy. No E, no IE, just
No
STACY. But then we both have last names that are difficult for people to pronounce and spell.
Yes.
But what we want to do is share our stories and tell you about the struggles we're going through as Catholic convert, wives, mothers, sisters, living here in Texas among Protestants. We just want to share our stories.
That's right. You know what? Stacy, we're both in our 50s.
Right.
And between the two of us, if you think about it, we have about 100 years full of struggles and battles and big dreams and victories and losses.
Yes, all of that. And we feel very blessed to have that 100 years together to look back on. And just to emphasize again, we are not going to be giving you answers in this podcast. We're going to be sharing our lives, sharing our struggles and stories. And we don't have the answers, but we don't have to have the answers because we know who does. We know that Christ has the answers. And so this is our stories about constantly conforming our will to God's will as we try to live these lives that we're living.
That's right. So if you're not afraid to get your boots dirty, we're going to stir the pot a little. I mean, Stacy, we're committed to getting real in this grace-filled, gritty life, and we're determined to keep walking it out.
Yes, to keep going on through this. So just to tell you a little bit about who we each are, Stacy Trasancos, the Trasancos one of the Stacys. I've spent most of my time until now, about 10 years now, in Catholic media, right from writing a blog to writing a book to doing speaking and going on the radio and podcast. Most of that time has been spent, though, in the theology and science arena. I started my blog back in 2010. I don't know if many people even remember that, but I remember I felt like I first tiptoed onto the Catholic stage the first time I published my first blog. I'm like, oh, this is live. This is real. Anybody could read it. But I started doing that because I was in a master's degree program at Holy Apostles College and Seminary. So as many people know my story, I worked as a senior research chemist for DuPont, and I was not religious at all. I mean, we both grew up Baptist, and we'll tell our story in a minute about how we met, but we both grew up Baptist here in Texas, but I completely left my faith in my 20s and pursued science. I became a chemist, and I love science. I still do. but I was very much not religious most of my life. And it's a whole story into itself, how I came back to God and came into the Catholic faith with the help of my husband. But when I started writing, I had just enrolled in the Holy Apostles College and Seminary master's degree program, and I wanted to start putting what I was learning about our faith, dogmatic theology, to work in my life. And so I was writing about it, and my blog was called Accepting Abundance, because that's what I was doing. I was a new convert, and I felt like God was just showering me with this abundant life. We were having children and my marriage, and I didn't feel worthy. And so it was an exercise for me just to learn to accept what God had in store for me. And so I was writing about it. And I wrote, it was kind of my ongoing RCIA formation. I wanted to be wife, mother, all this fancy dogmatic theology stuff. But as I got into that theology and science field, it was still always because I was trying to accept abundance. It was always about evangelizing. I heard everywhere I went to speak, parents in anguish because their kids are leaving the church. They like I've done ever since I've been Catholic. I've raised my kids with every effort I could to raise them in a home, a domestic church, a life of faith. And I've heard so many parents in anguish coming. They want to hear what I have to say about science and faith because they want to know why their kids are leaving the church. So it's a bigger issue for me than science and theology. It's always been a bigger issue for me. I only got into science and theology because I realized as a chemist, I had something to say about that. But, I just, getting back to this feels so right. I have some experience homeschooling my kids while I was doing the online school at Holy Apostles. My husband retired in 2017 and we moved back to Texas, my homeland. And we've been here 5 years now. I found, for 3 years, I was the executive director of Bishop Strickland's St. Philip Institute. And again, I told Bishop Strickland, I'm going to pull from what I know as a chemist and a master's degree in theology in the theology and science field, but it's still, I'm directing an institute for evangelization and catechesis. I want to do my best here in East Texas to bring people to Mass, to Christ, to come. People in East Texas love Jesus. And I'm like, well, then come be with him in the real presence. So
I love that.
That's what it was always about. And getting back, doing this podcast with you, Stacy, it's getting back to what I've always been about, or what I really feel is the thing I'm most called to do is to talk to people and share about how we get through, how we navigate this life of faith.
Yeah.
And at my age, I don't have time to waste. I hate to say it. I mean, I'm like, it's still, I have to say I'm 50 because it's hard for me to believe I'm 50. But at my age, I ain't got time to waste. And as they say here in Texas, and kind of the way I live my life, go big or go home. Like, we're going to do this podcast with the very best that we have to offer, humbly, obediently, submitting in prayer. But this podcast is our smackdown. And I think you heard it in our music. Because I kind of feel like this at age 50 is like, I have tried to navigate a life of faith and it's not getting easier. And I'm looking back at life with all the shield as a warrior out here alone on the battlefield. Like you said, Stacy, I'm looking back at life going, you are not going to break me.
No,
you're not going to break me. I am giving the war cry back to you, the smack.
I love that war cry. You are drawing a line in the sand.
That's right. Bring it.
Stacy, the 50s is the new 20s.
Yeah.
Yep. No, well, you know what? I am so excited. I have gotten to spend time with Stacy, and I've listened to you on the radio and in different venues, and I love how courageous you are, and I love that you are not afraid of the fight. I mean, you are one of the bravest women that I know, and I'm so excited to see how God is going to use our smackdown for His glory. Well, just a little bit about me. I owned my own insurance agency, and I closed it down to be with my children and started a long adoption process. So I had 2 biological boys, adopted 4 girls, 2 from the States that were teenagers, and 2 internationally. So the international adoption was a long emotional roller coaster ride. It really was.
Mhm.
But I actually homeschooled 5 of my 6 children for 5 years, same as you, Stacy. We did it for so many
I
similarities in our
know.
stories.
It's crazy.
But during this season, when my kids were little and I was home, everything started revolving around church. All of their activities. I started volunteering in the children's ministry. And I'm going to tell you that that was such a great place for me to start because they spoke on my level at that time. I
Mhm.
learned so much. And I was just a sponge and just wanted to learn and absorb everything that I could. And a love of ministry and serving Jesus was really birthed in my heart at that time. And I just wanted to be a part of everything. And so I found myself leading women's groups and, you know, teaching Bible studies and leading prayer groups. And I was on the altar ministry team, and I began to oversee women's groups.
Mhm.
We called these groups life groups because that's where life
Yeah.
happens. You build community, you link arms with one another, you pray for one another. I mean, you battle for one another, and you really get to learn how to have a relationship with Jesus and how to have a relationship with each other. And lifelong friendships are made, and it was such a blessing to be a part of that. And I was also an oak.
An
I
oak.
was part of an oak. I was part it's based on the Oaks of Righteousness, based on a scripture in Isaiah. But we were a 4-woman team,
Wow.
ministry team, and we traveled around and we did conferences and women's retreats, and we went on mission trips, and I went to Greece and Egypt and Russia and Israel. But once we did a conference in Peru, and we got to do a radio program, and I was able to speak on the heart of
Mhm.
adoption. And I look forward to doing a podcast
Yeah.
on that at some point because I'm so passionate about that. Well, I am married to the love of my life, Pat, and we live on a few acres in East Texas with our cows, and we're actually about to purchase a new horse. I'm really excited about that. God has so blessed me with my husband, and 6 kids have given us 5 beautiful grandchildren. 5 so far.
Yes.
I'm hoping for a dozen, but we'll see what the Lord does.
Yes. Our
um,
grandmother smackdown.
hey, yeah, absolutely. But, I just wanted to say that I feel like I've come full circle. So, like I said, I was very involved in my church and in women's ministry. But as I began this journey into the Catholic Church, I really felt called to lay everything down. I didn't know why at the time. I didn't know if it was going to be permanent or a season. But the closer I got to joining the Catholic Church and converting to
Mhm.
Catholicism, I really began to believe that it was gonna be a permanent thing,
Mhm.
that the Lord was calling me to lay everything down, and it was such a huge part of me, could I lay this huge part of me down? And how could I not? How can I not lay anything down that He asked me to? I mean, anything good that came out of anything that I've done is all Him anyway. And, it's kinda like Moses saying, "If you don't come with me, I'm not going," and I was like, "Lord, if you're not in it, I'm not doing it." Because I know in and of myself, it's not gonna be, prosperous. It's only gonna work if he's in it. So, absolutely, laid everything
Must
down.
have been hard though.
It was, but you know what? I wanted to follow Jesus into his church
Hmm.
and to come into the fullness of the truth. I was so hungry to be home.
Yeah.
So I
Aw.
did. And you know what? I really think that once I submitted and laid everything down, it just gave God the opportunity to work in me and to work into my heart. I went through a healing process, and I'm sure that we'll discuss in detail more of that journey as we podcast
Yes,
together.
we will.
But I really believe that, by laying it down, God has been able to open this door, this opportunity, and I am so excited. I'm thrilled to be a part of this and this adventure. And Stacey, I think you and I make a great team.
We do. I just
Yes.
feel so blessed that you're back in my life. I mean, I'm still kind of just, it's surreal in a way. How we met. I mean, you know how you just have those things that happen in your life, like 1 minute your life is this way, and 5 minutes later your life is forever changed. And for me, that change came when I know this happens to a lot of people on the internet these days, but I just got a direct message on Facebook from you one day saying, "Is this Stacy Denny?" That's my maiden name. That grew up in Paris, Texas.
Yeah, well, I was driving in the car, and so when I was, when I was converting, I love conversion stories. I still do. I listen to them all the time, and I always wanted to know what was that one thing that just, light bulb moment for you that made it all real, and was my journey similar to yours, and where did you come from, and I just love it. So I was listening actually to the journey home on the way home.
Yeah.
And I heard this familiar voice, and how in the world could I hear a familiar voice that I hadn't heard in what,
40
40
years. Yeah, we
years?
figured
Yeah.
up it had been 40 years. That makes it sound so old. But
I know, I know, I
but
know.
yeah,
Well, yeah, but, I mean, I really, looking back on that moment, I know that was God,
it had to
because
be.
how could I have recognized a voice that I hadn't heard since we were kids? And so, yeah, I got home and told Pat about it, and he was like, "You have to reach out right now." And so I did. That very night, I
That's
reached
so
out to
neat.
you.
And I couldn't believe you could recognize my voice, because I know living in the Northeast, I kind of lost my Texas accent. So I don't even think I sounded the same as when I was a kid. And hopefully my Texas is all back on now. But
Yeah, you sound Texas.
and we did, when you contacted me, like you said you live nearby. And
Yeah,
and I just remember thinking, like, when I went and recorded that episode, I had no idea that you would hear it. Like, you
right.
never have any idea who's going to hear anything, but
Mhm.
that you heard it, and it still blows my mind that you recognize my voice. And I'm so
But
thankful that Pat told you to contact me. And the next thing we did is like meet for lunch.
Right, right. We went to Craft 64.
Right. Our place.
And yeah, we've actually met there several times, and every time we go, I have green beans. I love their
Yes.
green beans.
And I have French fries and think I should be eating the green beans. And I think they know us there now. But I mean, so anyone
Right.
thinking about starting a podcast, Stacy and I have been discerning this for almost a year now. I mean, we've done one
Mhm.
retreat together to see how it feels. It felt great.
Yeah,
We've been talking and trying to figure it out, and we've actually made some pretty significant changes in our own lives to be
yeah,
able to do this podcast. So we are starting this with very much seriousness and commitment to it. But
right.
yeah, and we'll probably go back to Craft 64 a few more times.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
it is a bar,
Absolutely.
just so you know, everybody. This is a bar. Like, we didn't know that, but we kept meeting there during the day at a bar.
We actually met one evening, though, and brought our husbands, and
We
we all
did.
4 had dinner there.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we had beer that night, just a little bit. But but it's a really cool bar with a lot of cool Texas beers on tap and really great
Mhm.
green beans. But
Yes.
but that first time we met, I just, like, hadn't seen you in literally 40 years. And we
Right.
were preteens the last time we had seen each other. And so we walk into this bar during the day and to have lunch, and so it's empty, nobody's there. And we we talked for so long that day. I don't know how long it
Mhm.
was. I just know it was for many hours. We sat
Hours,
there and
yeah.
talked, and I just felt the Holy Spirit. And I remember I told you, Stacy, like, I remember I was thinking, like, I've been in Catholic evangelization and ministry and stuff for and media for 10 or so years now. And when I heard us talking, I'm like, there needs to be a microphone on this talk, because we were just, I
Mhm.
mean, you were a woman like me with a very sincere convert's heart, trying like everything to get it right as a Catholic. And we started talking
Mhm.
about our struggles and our fears and
Yes.
our funny
Yes.
moments as convert
Yeah.
Texans, from our very serious and wonderful Protestant upbringing. I mean, I
Yeah.
love the Baptist church for what it taught me as a child. And we
Absolutely.
started talking with a good heart. I mean, everywhere in the Catholic world, I hear people kind of rag on Protestants. But we
Mm.
were talking about the love we have for the Baptists and the Protestants that we grew
Right.
up around, and our desire to be good Catholic wives and mothers. And we were talking, oh my goodness, about all the things going on with our kids and the struggles. And I thought,
Right.
this is just so, I am not alone. I'm not alone.
No. No, and that's what every woman out there needs to hear. And, I am glad you just said that, because I am a Catholic, but I love my Protestant roots.
Hmm.
And, I can't separate, that's who I am. That is who I am. I am a Catholic convert, a Catholic wife, a Catholic mother, but I have strong Protestant roots.
Yeah.
And I loved the conversation we had that day, and I loved how real it was. And I
Mhm.
love that, we decided to stay in touch. And I'm so excited to see what God has done in the fingerprints, even back to, like you said, you recorded the journey home. You didn't know who was going to hear it, but that was just part of God orchestrating everything and,
It
and
is.
connecting the dots. And we can just see his fingerprints as we look back.
Totally, and the way doors open, and so we're really excited to be doing this podcast.
Hmm.
We are sort of bringing that smackdown attitude we found as 50-year-old wives and mothers and grandmothers and Catholic converts, and hey, Texans.
Hmm.
We're
Texans.
I'm so glad just to be able to be Texas again. I love this land where I was born.
Yes.
I'm so glad to
Yes.
be
Yes.
here. And this is,
Hmm.
just so you know, we encourage you to subscribe, to follow our website, staceyandstacy.site, for information, follow us on social media, and to
Hmm.
be part of the conversation. Like we said in the beginning, we're
Yes.
not here to tell you all the answers. We're here to get real, to get smackdown real,
Yeah.
to get our boots dirty,
Mhm.
and to
Yes,
tell our stories, and just let you know that
and
all these
and
things were.
maybe we can in some way build community with this. We
Yes,
we wanna build
exactly.
community. We wanna link arms with you, so we
Yeah.
wanna hear from you.
Yes, very much so. Because we'll unpack it all in later episodes, but we've been through just about everything as mothers. We are very much aware of all the challenges our precious children as young adults and teenagers are facing out there in the world.
Yeah.
We've dealt with all of it, so we'll talk about all that later. But um, we don't have these perfect, pristine little crystal glass lives where all the boxes are checks and all our ducks are in a row.
Uh-uh.
Our cows get out sometimes, and
Stomping our flower beds.
stop in our flower beds. That actually happened. So we're here to be real.
I'm Stacy Farquharson.
And I'm Stacy Trasancos. Until next time.
If you are interested in bringing Stacy and Stacy to your parish or study group for a retreat or a talk, they would love to come liven things up and keep it real. Please see staceyandstacy.site for more information.